Did you know James Cameron wasn't even the first choice to direct the film? Or that those terrifying xenomorph suits were literally made from condoms and real animal bones? And those are just a few of the insane behind-the-scenes stories you're about to hear. So buckle up, because in this video, we're diving into 25 of the weirdest, most shocking facts about aliens that you definitely didn't know. Stick with me until the very end, because fact number 25 is so bizarre, it'll change the way you see the movie forever. Number 1. James Cameron wasn't the first choice. When James Cameron was brought on to direct Aliens, hardly anyone in the British crew wanted him there. At the time, Cameron was known only for the Terminator's script, which hadn't even been made yet. To most of the experienced Pinewood Studios crew, he was just a young, unproven Canadian director. They wanted Ridley Scott back, and many openly dismissed Cameron as the writer guy. Things got so bad that some crew members barely listened to his directions and even took lunch breaks during takes to protest him. Cameron and producer Gail Ann Hurd had to fight every single day to get respect, which adds a whole new layer of intensity to how the movie turned out. Number 2. The pulse rifles were built from real machine guns. The iconic pulse rifles, the weapons that made sci-fi action history, weren't just props. They were actually built from real British military weapons. The base was a Thompson submachine gun, combined with parts of a franchise SPAS-12 shotgun. This gave the guns that heavy, realistic feel you see on screen. But here's the weird part. Because they were firing blanks from real weapons, they were insanely loud. So loud, in fact, that Sigourney Weaver later admitted she developed a fear of the pulse rifles during filming, because every time one went off, it felt like an explosion in her chest. Number 3. The Alien Queen was a monster of engineering. The terrifying Alien Queen wasn't CGI. She was a 14-foot-tall animatronic puppet, controlled by up to 16 operators at once. 2 people were inside the suit, operating the arms and head, while others outside worked cables and hydraulics to move the tail, jaws, and body. Coordinating all of this was like conducting an orchestra of horror. The weirdest part? The Queen was so massive and delicate that once she was set up on stage, she couldn't be moved without hours of work. Cameron had to design entire sequences around where the Queen could physically stand. The fact that this towering creature looked so alive on screen is still considered one of the greatest special effects feats in cinema history. Number 4. The cast went through a Space Marine boot camp to get the actors into the mindset of being colonial Marines. Cameron hired a real military advisor to run a week-long boot camp. The cast learned drills, weapon handling, and even how to move like a unit. It bonded them together. But here's the twist. Paul Reiser, who played Burke, was deliberately kept out of boot camp. Cameron wanted the Marines to see him as an outsider, someone weak and untrustworthy. This tiny psychological trick worked perfectly, because during filming, the actors naturally distrusted Paul Reiser and excluded him from their group, which translated directly into how the audience felt about his slimy corporate character. Number 5. Newt's screams were real and traumatizing. Carrie Henn, the child actress who played Newt, had never acted before Alien. To get her realistic screams during the alien attack scenes, Cameron used an unusual technique. Instead of asking her to act scared, he would create sudden loud noises or have crew members jump out at unexpected moments. While this gave us bone-chillingly real performances, it also scared Carrie so badly that she often cried between takes. Interestingly, after Aliens, Carrie never acted in another movie again. She went on to become a schoolteacher, far away from Hollywood. Number 6. Bill Paxton's famous line was completely improvised. One of the most quoted lines in sci-fi history, Hudson's panicked scream, "Game over, man, game over," wasn't even in the script. Bill Paxton, known for his humor and spontaneity on set, blurted it out during filming when Cameron encouraged him to just react in character. What's amazing is that the line perfectly captured Hudson's breakdown and became a pop culture staple. Paxton himself later joked that people shouted "game over" at him more than anything else in his career, proving that sometimes an unscripted moment can define an entire character. Number 7. Sigourney Weaver was nominated for an Oscar. When Aliens hit theaters, it wasn't just a box office smash. It also broke Hollywood barriers. Sigourney Weaver's performance as Ripley earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, making her the first actor ever nominated for a major Oscar in a science fiction film. That was unheard of in the 1980s, when sci-fi was often dismissed as popcorn entertainment. Though she didn't win, the nomination alone elevated Aliens from genre flick to serious cinema, and it paved the way for later sci-fi performances to be recognized. Number 8. The Sulaco interiors were shot inside a power plant. The spaceship Sulaco, with its eerie metallic corridors and industrial look, wasn't a set built from scratch. Instead, much of it was filmed inside an actual decommissioned power plant in Acton, London. The production team added futuristic panels, pipes, and lighting, but if you look closely, you can see traces of its real-world industrial architecture. This unusual filming choice gave the Sulaco an authentic, gritty realism that a studio-built set could never have matched. Number 9. The alien egg opening sound came from a very disgusting source. The gooey, organic sound of the alien egg's opening is unforgettable, slimy, creepy, and utterly stomach-turning. But here's the weird truth. Sound designers created it by recording the sound of condoms filled with jelly and slime being stretched and torn apart. To make it even nastier, they mixed in the squish of raw pasta and the peel of fruit. The result was so convincing that many audience members swore they could feel the egg opening, even though it was all just audio trickery. Number 10. James Remar was originally cast as Hicks, but fired. Before Michael Biehn became the beloved Corporal Hicks, the role actually belonged to actor James Remar. He even filmed some early scenes, but partway through production, Remar was suddenly fired due to personal issues, later revealed in interviews as drug-related problems. In a rush, Cameron brought in Michael Biehn, who had already worked with him on The Terminator. Interestingly, some of Remar's early footage remains in the final cut. Eagle-eyed fans have spotted shots where Hicks is clearly being played by a double or shown from behind, and it's actually Remar, not Biehn. Number 11. Lance Henriksen wanted to scare the cast for real. Henriksen, who played the android Bishop, was so dedicated to making the crew uneasy that he showed up at rehearsals wearing full white contact lenses and kept speaking in a flat, monotone voice, even when the cameras weren't rolling. His unsettling presence freaked out many of the actors, who weren't sure if he was in character or just naturally strange. Cameron later encouraged him to drop the lenses because they limited his ability to express subtle emotion. But Henriksen's creepy approach worked. Many of the cast admitted they felt genuinely unnerved being around him, which added to the tension on screen. Number 12. The iconic knife trick was real and terrifying. One of the most intense moments in the movie is when Bishop performs the knife trick, rapidly stabbing a knife between Hudson's fingers. What most people don't know is that the cast wasn't fully warned. Bill Paxton had no idea the scene was going to escalate as fast as it did. Henriksen actually did the stunt for real, and Paxton's panicked laughter and fear were 100% genuine. To make matters worse, Cameron sped up the footage slightly in editing, making the knife move even faster, turning an already dangerous stunt into one of the most unforgettable scenes in science fiction history. Number 13. The Xenomorph suits were made of condoms and old bone. The design team had a tiny budget compared to the scale of the aliens they needed. To get the slimy, grotesque texture of the xenomorphs, they literally glued condom, old animal bones, and bits of shellfish onto the suits. Mixed with black latex and slime gel, it gave the creatures their otherworldly, disturbing appearance. The weird part? The smell was so awful that many of the stunt performers inside the suits nearly passed out during filming, especially under the hot stage lights. Cameron had to shoot their scenes quickly before they collapsed. Number 14. Sigourney Weaver hated guns in real life. While Ripley is one of cinema's most iconic gun-wielding action heroes, Sigourney Weaver was actually deeply anti-gun in her personal life. During production, she clashed with James Cameron about the heavy weapons scenes, expressing discomfort with handling firearms. To make her performance believable, she trained extensively with military advisors, but Weaver later admitted she still hated it. Ironically, the pulse rifle and flamethrower combo she uses in Aliens became one of the most iconic weapons in sci-fi history, even inspiring video game designs for years afterward. Number 15. The cast was forced to live in military barracks. To create real-life tension and discipline among the colonial Marines, James Cameron made the actors live together in actual military-style barracks during filming. They were woken up at odd hours, forced to eat together, and even drilled in group exercises. The experience bonded the cast so tightly that their camaraderie on screen felt natural, especially in the joking, trash-talking scenes early in the movie. Interestingly, Cameron himself didn't participate, which only reinforced the Marines' shared sense of brotherhood against outsiders like Ripley, and even the director. Number 16. The power loader nearly didn't work on set. One of the most iconic images in cinema is Ripley inside the yellow power loader fighting the Queen alien. But what most viewers don't know is that the machine was not CGI or miniatures. It was a real functioning 700-pound prop built with hydraulics and puppeteering system. The problem? It was so heavy that it required multiple crew members off camera to control its arms and legs, while Sigourney Weaver balanced inside like a pilot. Sometimes it barely moved at all, and Cameron feared the sequence would fail. In fact, several takes had to be abandoned because the loader froze mid-action. The fact that it looks seamless on screen is a miracle of editing and timing, not flawless engineering. Number 17. The Alien Queen took nearly 16 people to operate. Before Aliens, few creatures on film were as ambitious as the Alien Queen. At almost 14 feet tall, she was essentially a walking puppet requiring a small army of operators. Some controlled the head, others the jaw, the arms, and even the tail, all at the same time. It took months of rehearsals to coordinate the movements so the Queen would feel alive rather than robotic. Behind the scenes, it looked like chaos, wires, hydraulics, and people shouting cues. But on film, it's one of the most terrifying creatures ever brought to life, without a single frame of CGI. Number 18. The British crew didn't respect James Cameron at first. When production started at Pinewood Studios in England, many of the British crew had worked on Ridley Scott's original Alien and didn't trust Cameron, who at that point was still a relatively unknown director. Some crew members openly dismissed his ideas, assuming he couldn't match Scott's artistry. Things got so tense that Cameron and producer Gail Ann Hurd held a meeting telling the team they were free to leave if they didn't believe in the project. Slowly, Cameron proved himself through sheer determination, but during the first weeks, the atmosphere was so hostile that the film's future looked uncertain. Number 19. Ripley's maternal bond was almost cut from the film. One of the most emotional threads of Aliens is Ripley bonding with Newt after losing her own daughter. But here's the strange twist. The subplot about Ripley's daughter, who grew old and died while Ripley was in hypersleep, was removed from the theatrical release. The studio thought it slowed down the action. Without that detail, many viewers missed the deeper reason why Ripley became so protective of Newt. Only in the special edition years later did audiences finally understand Ripley's grief, turning her character into something far more layered than just an action hero. Number 20. The Sulaco's design was based on a gun. The USS Sulaco, the massive ship that transports the Marines, has a strange inspiration. Designer Sid Mead revealed that the ship's long, rectangular body was deliberately modeled after the barrel of a M41A pulse rifle, the Marines' signature weapon. Cameron wanted the ship itself to feel like a weapon of war, not just a spacecraft. This hidden symbolism means the moment the Marines arrive on LV-426, the audience subconsciously feels that violence is inevitable, because even their ship looks like it's built for battle. Number 21. The Xenomorph costume that almost killed the actor. Most fans assumed the alien creatures were purely special effects magic, but in Aliens, many of those terrifying xenomorphs were played by real actors in full-body suits. What's weird is that the design was so suffocating and dangerous that some performers nearly blacked out during filming. Unlike today's lightweight CGI suits, these were thick rubber molds that trapped heat and cut off airflow. In fact, several crew members had to stand by with oxygen masks just to keep the stunt performers from collapsing. It got so bad that between takes, they'd literally peel the suits off the actors to stop them from fainting. So while Sigourney Weaver was blasting away on screen, there were real people inside those monsters, sweating and gasping for breath in silence, making those screams of pain a little more believable. Number 22. James Cameron's handwritten script that fooled the studio. When Cameron pitched Aliens, the studio wasn't fully convinced, so he pulled a trick. Instead of typing his first draft, he handwrote about 90 pages of the script, complete with rough sketches, arrows, and notes in the margins. It wasn't just writing, it was almost like a blueprint for the entire movie. The weird part? Executives thought it looked raw and visionary, which gave them confidence he was onto something special. They mistook his scribbles for creative genius, and that's what helped lock down the film. In reality, Cameron had simply been short on time, but his messy draft accidentally gave Aliens its green light. Number 23. The screams of the Alien Queen weren't alien at all. Here's something that'll make you listen differently the next time you watch the movie. The monstrous roars and screams of the Alien Queen weren't created with computer effects. Instead, sound designers layered together recordings of real animals, alligators, elephants, and even hissing snakes. But the weirdest part? One of the most terrifying shrieks of the Alien Queen actually comes from a camel. Yes, a camel. Sound engineers distorted and stretched it until it became unrecognizable. But technically, when Ripley faces off against the Queen, you're hearing a very angry desert animal. Number 24. Sigourney Weaver nearly got the film banned overseas. We all remember Ripley's showdown with the Queen using the iconic power loader, but did you know that scene nearly caused censorship problems? When foreign censors first saw Weaver inside the giant exosuit blasting the alien Queen, some countries debated banning the movie because they thought the power loader was a weapon of war designed for military propaganda. In Japan especially, critics were suspicious that the exosuit was modeled after real classified robotics research. James Cameron had to publicly clarify that the power loader was a fictional design built just for the movie. Number 25. The movie accidentally predicted real space tech. Here's a fact that blurs the line between science fiction and science reality. In Aliens, the colonial Marines rely on motion trackers, pulse rifles, and even automated sentry guns to survive against the xenomorphs. At the time, these weapons and gadgets were pure inventions, stuff that looked cool on screen but didn't exist in the real world. But decades later, military engineers admitted that many of these designs directly influenced real technology. For example, motion tracking radar systems used by soldiers today look eerily similar to Cameron's beeping handheld tracker. And the concept of remote-controlled sentry guns? That's now a real defense tool deployed in high-security zones. In other words, Cameron and his team weren't just making science fiction, they were unknowingly sketching out the blueprint for the future of warfare.